What if you could decode a country's entire future just by looking at a single month? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're diving deep into October of 2025 to unpack the blueprint for India's path forward. And for all of you studying for the UPSC exams, you're going to want to pay close attention. This is a perfect case study in governance, economics, and public policy, all rolled into one.
So you're probably thinking, come on, how can 1 month really tell us all that? It's a fair question. But the thing is, the policies that rolled out in October 2025 weren't random. They were like individual puzzle pieces. Alone, they look interesting. But when you click them all together, a much bigger picture emerges. India's strategic game plan for the next couple of decades. We're talking about everything from high finance to farming to the future of AI. It's all connected, and we're about to show you how.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking at the bedrock, the foundation of economic stability. Then we'll get into the really exciting part, how the government is using market forces to shake things up. After that, we'll explore India's big push for self-reliance and its brand new playbook for the digital age. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see that master plan. So, let's jump right in.
First things first, you can't build a strong economy without a rock-solid foundation, right? And in the world of economics, that foundation is all about macroeconomic and fiscal stability. This is ground zero. This is where both the government and the Reserve Bank of India began, by making sure the entire system was securely anchored.
So, the big headline here is, actually, what didn't happen. The Reserve Bank of India decided to hold all its key interest rates steady. You can see the repo rate, the SDF, the MSF, all unchanged. Think of this neutral stance as the RBI having a light touch on the brakes. They're basically saying, the economy is cruising along nicely and we don't want to mess with that, but we're ready to act if inflation starts picking up speed. It's a classic wait-and-watch approach.
And this is exactly why they can afford to be so patient. The RBI actually upgraded its GDP growth forecast for the year to a very healthy 6.8%. You know, a number like this is a huge signal. It tells you the economic engine is really humming along, and the central bank's main job right now is just to ensure a smooth journey ahead, keeping the path clear of any major turbulence.
But there's a catch, and it's a big one. That headline inflation number, 1.7%, it looks amazing on paper, right? But it's hiding a pretty serious problem. The reason it's so low is that food prices were actually falling. Now, for those of us in the city, that feels like great news at the grocery store. But for farmers, it's a potential disaster. Their entire income is at risk. And this single dilemma right here sets up so many of the other policies we're about to discuss.
This gets right to the heart of a classic and really tough government balancing act. On one side, you have millions of government employees, and rightly so, they have aspirations for better pay and secure pensions. But on the other side, you've got the hard reality of the national budget. The 8th Pay Commission's job is to thread that needle. But look closely at that second point on the left, studying the cost of the old pension scheme. That's not just a line item, it's a huge signal that the government is preparing to make a very difficult, data-driven decision on the future of pensions in India. Okay, let's move on to our second theme. And as we do, I want you to look for a pattern, because a clear playbook is emerging here. Across completely different sectors, from banking to electricity, we're seeing this ideological shift. The state is stepping back from being the main player and is instead becoming a smart referee, designing new rules to let market competition drive efficiency and get better results for everyone.
Let's start with banking. Right now, a super conservative, safe bank pays the exact same amount for deposit insurance as a bank that's taking on a lot of risk. That doesn't really make sense, does it? So this new proposal flips that whole idea on its head. By tying the insurance premium directly to a bank's risk profile, the RBI creates a powerful financial reason for banks to manage their risks better. It's using the market to build a stronger, more stable banking system from the inside out.
Now let's take that same market logic and apply it to the power sector, something that affects every single one of us. A new draft electricity bill has this really fascinating idea at its core, separating the carriage, which is basically the physical network of wires and poles, from the content, which is the actual electricity that flows through them. So what on earth does that actually mean for your monthly electricity bill?
Well, think about your cell phone for a second. There might be one company that owns the physical cell tower in your area, but you can choose from several different mobile providers who all use that same tower to give you service. This reform wants to do the exact same thing for electricity. The state-owned company will still own and take care of the wires, but now other private companies can use those wires to sell you power. This could mean, for the very first time, you could actually choose your electricity provider, forcing them all to compete on price, on customer service. A total game changer.
And this idea of creating a market to solve a problem, it even extends to something as huge as climate policy. For years, India's industries had goals for energy efficiency, but they were mostly voluntary. Well, this new carbon trading scheme is a monumental shift. We are moving from a system of suggestions to a system where cutting emissions is legally mandatory.
So here's the clever part. This is how it works. It's a classic cap-and-trade system. The government puts a cap, or a limit, on emissions for about 282 big industrial plants. If a factory pollutes less than its target, it gets these certificates it can actually sell. But if it pollutes more, it has to go out and buy those certificates from the market. And with a huge penalty for failing to comply, this creates a really powerful financial reason for industries to invest in greener technology, which in turn helps India hit its big climate goals.
Now, at the same time, the government is using market forces in some areas. It's also taking very direct, very hands-on action in others. These are sectors it considers strategically vital for the country. The big idea here is Aatmanirbharta, or self-reliance. It's about a focused national push to reduce India's dependence on other countries for critical goods, especially food.
If you want to know just how serious the government is about this, just look at this number. That's 11,440 crore rupees. That's the budget for a brand new mission to make India self-sufficient in pulses. Dolls. We're talking about a massive national investment to make sure India can grow the food it eats. This is a very big deal.
Okay, so the plan has a few different parts, but the absolute game changer is that third bullet point. The government is promising to buy 100% of certain pulses, like tur and masoor, at a guaranteed minimum support price, or MSP. This completely removes the price risk for farmers. It gives them a powerful, concrete financial incentive to maybe shift away from water-guzzling crops and start growing the pulses that are so critical to India's diet.
And this chart, this is a perfect example of what economists call policy signaling. Just look at the bars. Wheat gets a decent hike, but look over at safflower, a massive 10.1% increase. That's not a coincidence. That's the government sending a loud and clear message to farmers, please grow more oilseeds. And why? Because the goal is to slash India's massive and very expensive import bill for edible oils. It's policy in action.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about the digital world. Technology is completely rewriting the rules of our society, from how we work to the information we consume online. And that means governments everywhere are scrambling to write new rulebooks. This next section is all about how India is trying to adapt its laws for the new challenges of AI and the gig economy.
First up, a small but really important change to the IT rules. In the past, in order to take down some online content could come from various levels of government. Now, that power is restricted to only very senior officials. This acts as an internal check and balance, a kind of procedural safeguard to help prevent the power of censorship from being used too easily or arbitrarily. And speaking of online content, one of the biggest challenges on the horizon is the explosion of what the law calls synthetically generated information. You and I know it by a much catchier and frankly more chilling name, deepfakes. This is content that is created by AI to look and sound so real, it's almost impossible to tell the difference.
So how in the world do you regulate something like that without just killing innovation? The government's new approach is fascinating. Instead of trying to ban AI-generated content, which would be nearly impossible, it's mandating transparency. Social media platforms and others will now have to clearly label content if it's been synthetically made. The goal isn't to censor information, but to empower you, the user, so you know what's real and what isn't. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground today. We've talked macro stability, market reforms, self-reliance, digital regulations, a lot of different pieces. So for this final section, let's do what we promised at the start. Let's pull the camera all the way back and weave these threads together to see the big picture, the grand strategy that's taking us towards 2047.
If there is one sentence that captures the essence of everything we've talked about, this is it. Just think about it for a second. Pushing for tough electricity reforms? That's politically risky. Taking on the incredibly sensitive pension debate? Also risky. But in case after case, the pattern is the same. A clear willingness to take on some short-term political heat in exchange for long-term structural strength. For all you UPSC aspirants, this is the key takeaway. Seeing how all these issues are deeply interconnected, how farm policy connects to inflation, how pension debates affect state budgets, it's all one big strategic puzzle.
So there you have it, a detailed look at India's future, all revealed through the policies of just 1 month. Now, if you want to dig even deeper into these topics and really master them for your exams, we've got you covered. Just head over to our website. You'll find the link right there in the description for our detailed notes and a super helpful mind map to help you connect all these dots. Thanks so much for joining me.